Okay, so DTS came out, and I had recovered from my, sadness of Vettel leaving, Daniel leaving, Mick leaving. And I want to thank DTS for bringing all of those emotions back. I've got my Daniel Ricciardo shirt on. You will see it in all of the clips. And yeah, justice for Daniel. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to Break Check. This is episode 4 of season 2. All the liveries of the new cars have come out. Megan and I are going to go over that after, of course, talking about any news in the cycle and then some initial, well, for me, initial Drive to Survive thoughts. Megan is fully in it. Megan, how was your weekend?
It was great. I had some friends visiting over the past week, so it was very busy with them. We went to Edinburgh. It was beautiful there. Just a lot of the kind of classic touristy things in London, like Big Ben and London Eye, and then just exploring some of the neighborhoods and stuff. So it was a really good time. Yeah, it was fun. A bit tired, so this weekend was more just catching up on things. But how was your weekend?
It was okay. Pretty, whoa, I accidentally turned on the noise canceling and it sounds like I'm talking through a straw. Let me start that over. Okay. All right. I sound normal again. Um, well, I got new headphones, so that was nice.
That's nice.
For those who don't know, not for those, nobody knows, I have some issues with my ears where it's uncomfortable to wear AirPods. So I splurged with my work bonus and got myself some new headphones. So I can now hear Megan crystal clear. Weekend was pretty laid back. I was a little under the weather, so just making sure I'm just kind of relaxing, sleeping enough, drinking water as per usual. So yeah, nothing of note.
Yeah, I feel like I've been chugging emergency every day just because I've been around some people who've been sick. It's
Yeah.
that allergy season. I'm not really interested in being sick anytime soon.
No.
So, and you've had a bit of a battle with things back to back. So,
Yeah, I've been getting sick often and aggressively, and I'm a little tired of it. I actually, oh man, this is a riveting weekend. I bought a multivitamin for the first time yesterday, so I'm gonna start taking it today.
a very adult purchase.
Oh my goodness. Sorry.
We're doing great. Things are
Yeah.
well.
Do you have any news you want to talk us through?
I do. So real quick, no big deal. Lance broke both of his wrists. So he was he was out of testing this past weekend, and Felipe did do some sit-ins for that. And it was also just announced before we started recording this that if Lance is not well enough for Bahrain on Sunday, that Felipe will fill in, which I'm very excited for Felipe. I definitely suspect that he will be participating in Bahrain. It might
Yeah.
just be that, but I've sprained my wrist before and that was painful enough. I can't imagine Lance with no wrist would be better by Sunday.
Yeah, maybe we do some further medical research here, but how do we feel about wrists being important to Formula One drivers? Do we think that's a
Yeah, I mean, you only need it to steer the car. So
yeah, it's nothing. Car drives itself practically.
yeah, right. This day, yeah.
Yeah. This is I never want to you never want to make jest out of someone's injury, but if Felipe does well, I'm telling you, this could be the start of the end for Lance Stroll.
It could be like another Nick DeVries and Nicholas Latifi situation, just like
Mhm.
way sooner in this season, which would be honestly really nice.
Yeah.
It's rumored that from the testing that the Aston Martin was comparable to the Mercedes. It was doing really well. It's a strong number four car, which not to say I hate to hear it, but I do want to see it to believe it. I couldn't watch testing because I didn't want to pay for it. So we'll see.
We'll stay tuned this year, but was Fernando Alonso right?
Yeah. Might have made a good move on that one, not gonna
Yeah.
lie. And then in terms of other news, the only big one I wanted to announce was Red Bull is actually looking to sell AlphaTauri because they don't think
Mm.
it's worth the cost. I know I sent you like 100 things, I think, on Twitter overnight, my night or your night, my morning. But that was, yeah, that was one of the big ones. There's several teams, or yeah, several teams that are looking to buy it. Andretti's actually one of them.
Okay.
Given how many issues that they've been having with entering the grid, this would actually be a great opportunity for them to get in a little sooner. Although I don't know if that would complicate things on their end, or what that would even look like. But
Yeah.
it could be pretty interesting to see them enter in that form. Yeah, do you have any thoughts on that and the Red Bull team trying to sell AlphaTauri? That honestly took me by surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you don't really need a junior team when you see your formula of Max Verstappen and like a experienced second driver kind of works.
Hmm.
Obviously, I'm a huge fan of his, but Checo Perez not necessarily anything special on the grid. Like, I mean, he's great at what he does, but
Yeah,
you can find a similarly skilled driver, around
right.
Daniel Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas, those kind of guys come to mind. And if you feel confident about having Max locked up, I mean, what, you don't have to find his replacement for what, 10 years? So
Yeah.
I don't think it's I mean, like, yeah, why are they paying so much money to have a team come in seventh every year and
Yeah.
if 15th every race? And it would be cool to see it would be cool to see just a different team. And like, if that is Andretti, like you said, I don't, it's like different than their initial plan of coming in.
Hmm.
So I wonder what that would look like. I don't know enough to like
Right.
say one way or
Me
the
either.
other, but yeah, I'm here for it. I don't
Mhm.
love Red Bull, so less Red Bull is good for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I would just love to see Andretti in F1. I'm a huge fan in their IndyCar series, so it would be really great to see. And then
Yeah,
also, if you're going to grow the American fan base, I think having an actual American team, I know Haas is one, but this would be a bred American team building in America and all of that jazz, which Americans just eat up. So I think
yeah.
that would be their best strategy, personally. But yeah, I'm curious to see how that all plays out this year. I'm sure we'll hear more about it soon.
Sooner
And
we
then,
have an Andretti team, the better the prospects for Daniel Ricciardo to be back in F1
oh,
are.
I can only hope.
Yeah,
That would be a dream team. And then Williams had briefly mentioned coming out with their own episode or their own little mini series, just because they're not really featured at all in Drive to Survive. I've watched several of the 10 episodes, as of today, and they Alex Albon was shown once in this most recent episode, and then Nicholas Latifi, you kind of catch him next to Daniel when they're talking about his leaving. So
yeah,
they're really not featured at all. To be fair, there wasn't a ton of stuff other than Nick DeVries coming in. Like, there isn't really
yeah,
anything to talk about, but they did take everything down, and I'm assuming it's for legal reasons, because not the post was even designed inspired by, I would say, Drive to Survive's
yeah.
branding, and I'm sure that's not legal. So curious to see if they do anything with it, but it would have been cool to see what they put together.
Yeah, I wonder if Williams has it into their team budget to take on a legal battle with Netflix. I'm sure
Probably
they're
not.
just flowing with cash.
Yeah. And then real quick, I was watching actually the one of the streams of the testing on Saturday, and they were talking about Drive to Survive and whether or not they would do an episode next year on Ocon Gasly, just presuming that they're going to have some rivalry, knowing Ocon's history with his, you know, former teammates. Um, and they were asking, who do you think Drive to Survive would spin it to? Would they spin it in Gasly's favor or Ocon's? Because they do show both of them over time throughout the series. And who do you think that they would favor in an episode like that?
I think this is an easy answer for two reasons. They would spin it
Yeah.
in favor of Gasly.
Yeah.
One, because Ocon is the more aggressive driver,
Yeah.
and two, Gasly's hotter.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not even joking.
No.
He's like more attractive.
I was going to say yes 100% just because of Ocon's past, but the other
Yeah.
point is also that totally makes sense. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo was one of the reasons they featured him so much was because of his energy and looks, and now they've got Gasly, so why would they
Like,
not?
Gasly has been honestly like kind of a main character of Drive to Survive previous season,
Hmm.
not a main character, but he is featured
Yeah.
heavily. And I understand he had the stint in the Red Bull car, but like, what reason did Netflix have to show an AlphaTauri driver, or Toro
Yeah.
Rosso in the past. Look, I genuinely think it's because he's a little more
Yeah.
pleasing on the eyes. Not that, I mean, Ocon's a good looking guy, but
Yeah.
Gasly has a career as a model when his time in F1's done.
That's very, very true. Yeah. And I think he's a bit more just outspoken in general in terms of personality. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, again, like they eat that up. So, and then they also asked if F1 would ever become the dominant motorsport in the States. I have my thoughts, but I want to hear yours first.
Um, I think I think yes, but I I think like the number of people that watch
Mhm.
it casually will be the number one. I don't know that we'll ever have as many diehards here as
Right.
NASCAR has.
That's what I was thinking. Even with IndyCar, I think that though IndyCar and NASCAR are two huge sports or yeah, motorsports in the States. And ultimately F1 is not a US sport. It's a worldly sport. So it's not gonna have that same, I mean, it's gonna have a huge excitement when they come here because they only come here a few times a year. Whereas NASCAR, IndyCar, it's always here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. I think, just in terms of the overall diehards big following, it's going to stay more towards NASCAR.
And like, not to sound pretentious, and let me know if you've had a similar experience. I've come across like a ton of people that I know in like my social circles now are F1 fans. Like they watch Drive to Survive, they tune into some races. But
Mm-hmm.
like when I talk to them about F1, I do like, people are not on like mine or your level. Like I do have to
Right.
scale it down a little bit. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
like they're fans, and it's like a casual, people watch it the way they like casually watch football or
Yes.
baseball
Yeah.
or basketball. And I think that I would say casually it's already the number one motorsport, but as far
Mm-hmm.
as the diehards, like we said, it's not, I don't think gonna, yeah.
Yeah. Like if I ask my mom, name 10 drivers, she'll start with Hamilton
Yeah.
and then she might say Verstappen. And then she'll probably say, the little guy on Ferrari. And then that might be it, you know?
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, I completely agree. But yeah, that's
um
all the news I had, unless you had anything else.
no, I don't think I did. I think we will have more news to cover as the season goes on, naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So a
Yes.
bit of a slow period in F1 right now.
Honestly, yeah. And
Yeah.
it feels like this break has just been longer than others, even though I think it's actually shorter than last year's. But yeah, no, I'm very, very excited for the race in exactly 1 week.
Yes,
Which
which
as a
we
reminder,
yeah.
yeah, as a reminder, we will not actually have a recap for the Bahrain Grand Prix, but what we are going to do is post a little mini episode slash 1.5 minute maybe clip on Instagram, just sharing our thoughts, just because of scheduling and not realizing it was starting as soon as it is. So yeah, well, but we'll be back the week after for a rookie episode. So stay tuned for that.
Yes, and Nico
Um, oh, Andy,
Hulkenberg.
I'm gonna have to add that in the title.
Yeah, yeah. Season should be starting later. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah, so how do we want to talk about the liveries? Do we want to just have like a little back and forth? Do we want to rank them? Do we want to what?
So I put mine in like a top five, bottom five, and just like my
Okay.
little thoughts. So I feel like we can just go down that. My list, I feel like isn't like a hard, favorite, least favorite. I mean, I have
Yeah.
my favorite, but like everything in the middle is all kind of there. So we can just go around that.
Yeah. A lot of the liveries looking pretty similar this year.
Yes.
Slight changes here and there. So do you want, let's should we talk about our lesser favorites first?
Yeah, that works.
So my least favorite on the grid is, honestly, I don't hate any of them,
Same.
but I do think the Haas is a little just like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. That was on my bottom too. And it wasn't like I hated it. It was just like the black is cool. The
Yeah.
MoneyGram logo incorporation I thought was pretty unique. It's not exciting, like it looks like someone, went on those little livery design things and like made their own. And they put like a rectangle, on one side and the other side and a few stickers.
It's a very powerful tool that I know a lot of corporations use, but it does look like someone made the Haas livery on Canva.
No, I was thinking that's what I was going to say. I did. It's so true though. Like, and it's
Uh-huh.
fine. It's not like it's a bad thing. I use Canva for a lot of things, but it genuinely looks like a template you could download off of.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So yeah, not my favorite, but again, if it's the worst one, that means the liveries are probably fine this
Yeah.
year, you know. Um McLaren is growing on me a little bit. I
Yeah.
did not like last year's.
My note is I like it better than last year's. That's it. Like it's
Yeah,
it's fine. It's cool.
the papaya is a lot
It's
on
hard.
top of the fact that the car essentially has a million tattoos with their sponsorships.
Yeah.
So it is better than last year's, but I'm ready for them to take it in another direction.
I know. It's very flashy. It's fine. I mean, orange and blue, I think is a hard duo to work with, and you really have to pick the right shades. You've got to pick the right amount of each. I would personally prefer more blue and then like orange hints or like a white and then you put the
Ooh.
orange and blue kind of through it or something. I think that would
Mhm.
be really cool. I will say McLaren does the best one-off liveries I've ever
Yeah.
seen. They're some of my favorites, but they're just general livery. I'm not a big fan, but it's fine. It is what
You
it is.
know, since we started doing this podcast, I think McLaren has slowly grown out of favor as one of your favorite teams.
Okay, I was actually thinking about this, and it's true because when we started this podcast, I was like a ride or die McLaren fan. They had me hooked from Drive to Survive. I don't know, man.
I was never like a huge fan. And he's actually grown on me, but I don't know if you remember. I just I'm not a Lando fan. Like,
Right.
I'm just not into it, and I'm not super into Oscar either. So for
Mhm.
me, it's a little bit. The one who has grown off of me, and I'm not a huge fan of anymore, is Zach Brown.
I know it's so disappointing. I mean,
He's
I will.
it's kind of a dick.
They paint him okay, and this is also a thing that we can talk about in Drive to Survive, where it's
Yeah.
not really like they're making it look bad. It's kind of taking what you say, which I have so many thoughts. But Lando, Lando, I've never disliked. I think he's an incredible driver. I think he deserves a better car than what McLaren's giving him.
Mhm.
I actually really like Oscar Piastri. I really liked him in F2, but
Yeah.
he's been really kind of off the grid, I think, since everything went down. And so I'm curious to see how he does, just because I think there's so much pressure and expectation on him. But yes, with Zach Brown, I'm just so the clip in Drive to Survive when Ciro's like, "I told you not to trust Zach." It's like, there's there. It's not just a one-off thing. Like there must be a lot of I don't know
Yeah.
if it's shady things necessarily, but just like a lot of reasons why people may not like Zach, and it's not just this
Yeah.
stuff. So AlphaTauri, I don't hate it as much as other people. I actually kind of like where they have the red bits and pieces, but just compared to the other ones, it's not that exciting.
No, I agree. It's just kind of whatever.
It's just
Um,
there.
Alpine, I actually like.
Okay. I
I
mean,
I I like the blue. I like the blue
yeah.
was one of my favorite colors growing up, and I like the pink accents.
Mhm.
I think it's a good car. I think they have good race suits.
Yes, I
Uh
agree. I like the
yeah,
race suits.
it's not like my favorite, but I think it's on
Mhm.
my top half for me.
Okay. Yeah, it was like up there. It's around there. It just
Hmm.
I will say I liked their last year, their merch, their t-shirts. I never got one, but I did really like how they had the two options of like the more navy or the more white. That
Yeah,
was cool. I like that idea. I like that a lot. Much better than the Ferrari McDonald's stripe that they had going on.
with the black shoulder thing.
Yeah. Yes.
So Alfa Romeo last year, I think was really, really good. Why am I moving around?
You then
For the audio listener, I was just telling Megan about how when I make clips, I just bounce around the screen, and when I like put in our like the zooming settings to capture us, I have such an easy time grabbing Megan, and for some reason I'm like doing jumping jacks the entire episode throughout, and I just caught myself doing it again. Yeah, Alfa Romeo last year was a lot better. They have like that shiny like candy apple red that I
yeah.
think looks better with the white from last year than it
Mhm.
does with the black from this year.
And I was all for more black cars. There's just something with it, and that's it foreshadows my favorite. But I but yeah, I put them like towards the bottom of mine just because it was fine. Like I don't hate it. I like the Alfa Romeo. I'm hopeful for them. Probably not going to be great, but yeah, with the more black, I wasn't as into it. I will say the race suits though, I really really like where they're like all black pretty much with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
that's cool. Alpine, I don't hate it, but I actually prefer the pink car. So if they had their pink car for most of it, I'd be all here for it.
You just don't want Ocon to not have
Yeah.
to drive a pink car. Yeah, so Aston Martin, I see you have it as your fifth favorite.
Hmm.
I think that one I actually would put in my least, not least favorites, but
Okay.
bottom half. And I think it's because it's the only one besides maybe Red Bull that is
Yeah.
exactly identical.
That is true. They really didn't change it, but I liked it a lot last year. Like
That's a good point.
I love the green and the little stripe of like highlighter
Mm.
and I love it. But and also their shape is so different and I could not find the photo for the life of me. But
Mhm.
someone did do a comparison of last year's versus this year's and it's honestly impressive how many changes that there are. Um so
Man,
I thought that was
is
pretty cool.
is Aston Martin for real this year?
I'm so nervous. I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean we'll have to see.
Mhm.
I do like the British Racing Green. That is the official color. So
Yeah,
I do
that's
like that a
cool.
lot. I do not like the
Mm.
highlighter yellow. I am not a highlighter color fan, which to this day is my biggest knock on Lewis Hamilton is the man loves
Loves highlighter
highlighter
yellow.
colors. Oh my God. I
That and
want
that like deep, rich purple. It's like the two
yes.
together.
I don't know what hold those colors have on him, but I wish he would stop.
I know it's hard to buy his merch when it's all it reminds me of like my seventh grade volleyball t-shirts or something, like or just something that I would wear in middle school and I'd have
Yeah.
it tied in the middle or like
Oh
roll up the
no.
sleeves, like all the things, the cringy stuff I would do in 2000, 9 or 10 or whatever. So I'm just not into it.
Um, so I see in your notes that the Red Bull's septum piercing is growing on you.
Yes. The yellow nose is growing on me. I actually really like it. And I hated it, I think, last year when they released it. So I was like, why is that like the pure focal point of this car? But they're definitely trying to build their brand similar to Ferrari. And we've talked about this where they just want it to look roughly the same every year and it's just
Yeah.
iconic. And I think they'll have that for sure. So I don't shame them for it. Uh, but yeah, I'm a big fan of the yellow nose now.
Yeah, we like you said, we've talked about this before. I think something that they are forgetting when they are going for that iconic
Mhm.
car that people will look back on 30 years from now is we just do not like them like that. They are not the good guys in F1.
No, that's true. Yeah, and speaking of classic cars, Ferrari, again, they're a classic car, but they do, I feel like, have a bit more hints of black, like creeping up on
Mhm.
the bottom, which I actually I don't mind at all.
Yeah. Not like Ferrari reminded me of this because they're not winning a championship anytime soon. But I have said in the past that I do like the idea of the constructor that wins the constructors championship the previous year to come back with a black livery the next year. I think
That
that'd
would be
be
cool.
something kind of fun. Yeah.
That would be cool. Some sort of like tradition for, yeah.
But I do think we will get an all yellow Ferrari before we get an all black one.
And oh yeah, oh yeah,
They
fair,
almost did it
yeah,
last year.
that's true. Could you imagine? And the yellow in the Ferrari is not a nice yellow. Like, no offense, it's not a pretty yellow to
No,
paint all over a
no.
car. I'm sorry. That's tough.
I see you really liked the Williams
I
livery.
did. Okay, to be fair though, I also like blue's my favorite color, so it's hard
Okay.
not to like just the Williams in general because I
Yeah.
like blue and all the different like shades of it. But as a marketer, I'm obsessed with this Duracell placement. Like I can't get
Yeah.
over it. The photos that Albon posted the other day or today, after testing of like him like in the car and you kind of see Duracell on the side and in the back, it is just it's perfect.
Yeah.
Genuinely, like I there's 10 out of 10. So that would have been my favorite if it wasn't for the other one in my top one. But yeah, big fan.
Yeah, I really like I really like the Williams battery on top. That was
Mhm.
really good job. Do you want to read your description of the Mercedes livery you have?
It is. It says Mercedes, sexy, black.
Hmm.
And I think that's all you really need to say. But
Yeah, this is the best car.
yeah, I'm so
Um,
excited.
so I think I may have mentioned this to you, but something that I was reading about that I did not know. The
Mhm.
reason that Mercedes was had the silver arrow and all that and the silver cars in the past is to reduce weight by not having to paint the cars. And because car parts back then were silver, now
Mhm.
with the introduction of carbon fiber, most car parts are
Uh,
genuinely black. So that is actually what they are doing with the car. They made it all black so they don't have to paint. And I think only like a strip above the driver
mhm.
cockpit is actually painted. I think the rest of the car is just straight carbon fiber.
Honestly, genius. Like what a
Yes.
it's a time saver. It is a weight saver. I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah. I'm really glad it's all in black.
Yeah.
I did not like the silver car
Yeah.
last year. So
It's yeah, it was fine. It's yeah,
and it sucked.
that too. Which apparently according to testing, they weren't doing too hot either. It's
Yeah.
I know I did say Hamilton would win the world championship this year. Am I confident in it? No. Am I still going to stick to it? Yes. But we'll see. We'll see. I just hope he
um
gets a win. You know what I mean? Like it
yeah,
just
oh
like one,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
one redeeming win.
Um do you have any other livery points that you want to touch on?
No, I think we're all set on that.
So I am 2 episodes into the new season of Drive to Survive. Megan is many more than that. So she's
Mhm.
got some thoughts to get off, and I'll give my initial impressions. I do want to start by saying 2 things. One, I've recently got a comment on one of our reels on Instagram that Americans should stop
Oh.
watching F1. So I just want to say thank you to you guys. Made my morning. And secondly, I think it's no secret I'm a Drive to Survive fan. I do
Mhm.
not think it is as bad as people think. I think the
Mhm.
drivers and the principals and the teams say things and then don't like seeing them played back on camera. So
Right.
that's my attitude towards Drive to
Yeah.
Survive. I love it. So
Yeah.
before I get into it, what are your thoughts just generally so far on what you've seen?
Yeah, I think, prior to or after last year, there was a lot of negative feedback just on both some of the clips being misconstrued or just some of the rivalries that they were pitting against and the way they captured it also was very difficult for them to do so, knowing that Verstappen was not participating last year. And so I think people just didn't like the dramatization of it. And I do think that they listened to that quite a bit this year. Of course, certain things still seem, a little misconstrued. They've like put different clips in different places. That's just part of making a show,
Yeah.
putting sound to things. So I will say I do think this season is a really, really, really good season of Drive to Survive. I think it's one of my favorites other than like the first two, really.
Hmm.
So I hope that they continue to kind of go down this path. I will say I wish they covered I hope next year they cover a little bit more of all the things happening. Like they don't talk really much about Vettel leaving. They do highlight a little bit because it was kind of like the tip of the iceberg before things started to go downhill during silly season.
Yeah.
But they don't really interview him at all. They don't cover a ton of, him and his history. And I feel like knowing how much he's contributed and inspired and all of these things in Formula One, being a four-time world champion, having all of these great wins. I just wish that they had covered that a little bit more, just to give him a little bit more of a, light. But
And that is where I do feel like the show goes wrong. I think my gripe with the show has never been like the dramatization. It has always
mhm,
been the omission of
certain things.
certain racing points, storylines, like
Yeah.
Vettel retiring. And that is where I think maybe Europeans or longtime fans of F1 have a problem for the show, because at the end of the day, the show is for Americans.
Yeah.
And I mean, to put it bluntly, I don't think Americans care about Sebastian Vettel, which is sad, because
Right.
maybe if Drive to Survive gave him a little bit of a spotlight, they go, oh, like this guy is
Yeah.
such a big part of the sport. Like this is awesome. But then as a TV producer, you think, all right, like if we're being realistic, what's going to happen if you put Seb in front of a camera? Probably nothing,
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's it's really hard to find that balance, I think.
Mhm.
But I am looking forward to, well, I guess I'm not looking forward to. I was going to say I'm looking forward to seeing what they do cover of him later in the season.
Mhm.
I know we briefly talked about this off camera, but I thought, I'm only 2 episodes in, but I thought it was funny that Lando's ex
I kn
is
in
just
it,
in
like,
it.
within the first, like, 10 minutes, not even.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I sent you a text and I was like, there's literally 3 exes of these drivers in these episodes, just like randomly. And I just find it
Yeah.
so funny because, well, one, just of the amount of breakups that happened over the last year. And I don't know a lot about these guys' dating relationships. I see it and then it on Instagram, and then just to
Yeah.
see them on the randomly pop up on the TV and have whatever Lando's girlfriend was talking
Yeah.
and stuff, even it's funny. It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
All the younger drivers have really weird dating lives.
Well, they all date like 19-year-old models. That's
Yeah.
literally their type. That's all.
Yeah.
I feel
Except for
like there's,
Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri
yes, and
Bottas
we
has a
love him.
great relationship.
I love them. They're great. And then
Yeah.
Alex Albon dates another
Yes.
professional golf player. She's really cool too.
Mhm.
So good for them.
So what were your thoughts on the first episode?
First episode I thought was pretty good. I liked that they did cover a little bit of Nikita Mazepin leaving and introducing Magnussen back, and his kind of, first race, because that really was a big
Oh yeah.
moment. And it's crazy because I almost completely forgot about it because so much has happened over the past year. But it was incredible. He hadn't been racing in a race car for a year, at least an F1 car, and to come back that weekend and score points. It was like fifth or sixth or something. And yeah, it was great to see him. I kind of forgot how much I liked Kevin Magnussen because he was really quiet, and I guess he's more quiet now. He has a family, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was great. I actually really enjoyed it.
On the Mazepin point, I wish
Mhm.
they had made it a little more clear that he got kicked out because his father was a like oligarch, and
Yeah.
not just because he's Russian.
Yeah. I feel like
I
they
did
slid
wish
that.
I wish they had clarified a little bit, because
Hmm.
the way they had Gunther say it was just like, yeah, well, he's Russian and he's collateral, and it's like that's not exactly how it
Yeah.
went down.
It was great though that they, and I know you mentioned this too before we started recording, that they um put in the Magnuson suck my balls comment to Hulkenberg in the first episode as like a
Yep.
look back on his past. And it's again great foreshadow to what's to come, which is Nico Hulkenberg now his teammate. So can't wait for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, I know. I think they have moved past it though. I think they've both like
Yeah.
kind of joked
And
about
they're
it.
older, a little more
Yeah.
mature.
So episode 2 was tough as a Mercedes fan because it very neatly packages up the expectation at the beginning of the year to the
Mhm.
struggle during testing and the first half of the season, really, to
Yeah.
then Lewis fighting for a win, getting that podium, through goes Hamilton, all that stuff. Uh it packs it in nicely into a 60-minute episode, but as a Mercedes fan, it felt like a lifetime, waiting
Yeah.
for that car to be competitive. Uh what did you
Seriously.
think about that episode?
I liked it. I think that they covered it well. And, the Lewis clip of him saying, wanting to, win back the championship that was stolen from him. I thought that was a really bold take for him to say on Drive to Survive, because that's obviously not controversial, but is controversial at the same time, depending
Mhm.
on who you support. But yeah, I will say they make, and I texted this to you too, they make him look like he's 50 years old walking around holding his bag, which, like, I understand he had really bad porpoising issues, and I hope that is resolved for this one, because
Yes.
I mean, they can't, there's no reason. There's so many teams that have figured it out, and you think of all teams, Mercedes would be the one to have figured it out by now. So very much hoping for that to be resolved, but
He's obviously my favorite driver, and I love
yeah.
everything about him. But Lewis plays for the camera a little bit.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He embellishes a little bit, and same with the clip of Toto arguing with the team
Oh my
principals.
God, that was
I was a little embarrassing.
I will say though, a lot of the team principals were on Toto's side. I think it was more just because of the way Toto
Yeah,
randomly started going at it. They were like, calm down.
yeah. I did think it was funny that Christian kind of called him out, and is like, "Is this because the
Yeah,
cameras are running? Like, we could turn them
I
off,
know.
you know?"
And then episode 3, so they start off with Miami. And this is tough as a Ferrari fan, because as a Ferrari fan, this is when you start to see things go downhill. Like, this is when Red Bull kind of figured out their reliability issues, and they started to pick up. So the whole double pit in Miami, where they pitted Carlos and then they told Charles to come in, and then we're like, no kidding, and then he went in anyways, and then the same thing happened again in Monaco. Like, the whole thing was they show all the clips of that. So very heartbreaking to see Charles also get like emotional and sad and stressed
Yeah,
out. And but then they also do cover Carlos's win in Silverstone. So it's also cool because
yeah,
they show Silverstone quite a lot, probably because so much happened during that race. It was Mick's first points, it was Carlos' first win, it was the big crash, it was, Hamilton was fighting, and it was probably one of the best, my favorite race of the season, I would say.
I thought
So
it was the best one.
yeah, and it was cool that they covered it in so many different angles. Like, they got so much footage just from that one race.
Yeah,
So it was cool to see it from Carlos's end, and his family was there cheering for him, and it was a great watch. But yeah, they don't show like necessarily a rivalry between the two, but they clip to Charles at one point after the race when Carlos is on the podium cheering, and Charles looks equally pissed and devastated. Like, the look on his face, just staring into like a black wall. It hurts to see. And they
yeah.
do make it look a little bit like he's angry at Carlos, which I don't necessarily think is the case, because it was more of the team's call where they really messed up Charles's strategy, and it just ended up favoring Carlos, which
Yeah.
happens quite a few times. But yeah, and then just the whole Binotto, not wanting to dictate between the two drivers.
Episode 4, it looks like, is a
That's
Mick
next episode.
Schumacher
Uh-huh.
episode.
Uh-huh.
How'd you feel
Yeah.
about that?
Uh-huh. Not great. It was really hard. I mean, I will say it was cool that in the beginning you see Magnussen talking to Gunther, and it's like Mick is a great driver. He has it in him. Like, you just need to give him the time. And then they also show clips of, Gunther saying, oh, well, we gave him a year. He shouldn't be crashing yet. And I just want to say, and I won't go into all of it, but from the entire episode, I don't think it's fair to judge Mick on his first season in F1, because that car was years behind everyone else's. And I don't think it wasn't, not that it wasn't a Formula One car, but for compared to everyone else, I mean, it was constantly 10 seconds behind. So if I think they held that over his head too much. And while Gunther says, like, oh, he has to make himself his own man, he can't just like hide behind the Schumacher name. It's like, well, then give him that chance. Like, I don't think that he genuinely got that chance to do it at Haas, but I don't think he was ever going to get it there either. So I feel like they kind of they definitely downplayed how mean Haas was to Mick, whereas Gunther says that they weren't. But you see all the reports of things that were said, you hear the radio, even the radio clip that they show in the episode. talking to him. It's not great. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents. One more bone to pick with Gunther. Love him, but also he said Mick is free to leave if he doesn't like it. Which is funny because there's so many reports that Gunther and the team wouldn't let Mick go anywhere, and were holding this like potential thing over his head. Although they started looking at Hulkenberg all the way back in like Monaco, which was in May. So he had opportunity to go elsewhere, and they didn't even let him tease the idea. So I have a I have a little issue with that one. But of course they love Gunther at DTS, so they're gonna play it to his favor a little bit.
I don't know how Haas is still a team.
No.
I have no idea.
MoneyGram is genuinely saving them,
Yeah.
but I don't know to what extent. Like I still don't I don't expect them to be as bad as Williams just because of the driver pairings that they have in there right now. And also
Yeah.
the Williams has way less funding now. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Um oh yeah, but that's when they show Mick's first points at the British Grand Prix.
Oh,
And they
fun.
show yeah, and they show a lot of clips of like him talking about his dad. They do a lot of clips about some of the other drivers' opinions on Michael Schumacher. They don't mention his accident at all, which I think
Okay.
is good. I don't
Good.
think they need to talk about that. I'm so happy they didn't because it's just not
Yeah.
necessary. But they do talk about, you hear from a lot of drivers how that was their idol, and it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say Max Verstappen gets a lot of points on this too, because there is a clip of him saying, it's not fair to judge and compare Mick to his father. He's not his father. He's a qualified and a great driver, and that's all they should be looking at. And I have
Yeah.
huge respect for Max for saying that, because I feel like that, that's what
Yeah.
kind of needed to be said. But
Max and Mick are friends, right?
I think so. I think Mick is he's friends with Ocon
Okay.
too. I know they're big friends, and
Yeah.
then I think he's friends with George or something
Yeah.
too. Um, but they started racing together young because they're around
Right.
the same
Yeah.
age. So
Cool.
yeah. And then trying to think. I don't want to we don't have to go through all the episodes, but I do want to say episode 5 is when they briefly mentioned the Vettel retirement
Mm.
and silly season, and they talk about that. And two things: Sergio Perez, I think, was everyone in that video when he sees Vettel has an Instagram. He's like, oh, Vettel's on Instagram. And you open this video and it's him announcing his retirement, and just the pure look of shock on Sergio's face is hilarious. Like he's like,
Yeah.
I'm really happy they recorded someone's reaction to that, because
Yeah.
it's really everyone. It was really shocking. And then everyone is like, oh, there's rumors of who is going to go next. Obviously, there's a lot of interested people. And I forget how soon after Vettel's retirement that they announced Alonso. And Alonso says in the interview with Drive to Survive that, he got a call that weekend from Stroll and was like, oh, so you're staying with Alpine? He's like, no, not yet. I haven't signed it. I haven't received the contract. So Stroll sent him the proposal and he liked it. So he just signed.
Oh,
And he's like, and there's I had a quote of something, and then yeah, Fernando says bye bye, and I'm still the bad guy, is what he says, which is
hard.
funny. I love that.
Yeah.
Love that he owns it.
Yeah.
But I will say Otmar, he talks about how he's like, oh, I'm always painted as a good guy, but I have a bad side, kind of thing. And he's mean. Like the way he talks about Oscar Piastri and like laughs, he's kind of a bully in Drive to Survive. I will say he is the bad guy of the season, other than maybe Lando. But
Okay.
um,
Which is
which
interesting because Otmar comes off as very sweet.
but the way he talks about Oscar and the whole situation, and the way he came to Zach threatening to sue and all this stuff, and they show all
Yeah.
the behind the scenes bits of it, which I love, but it actually does make Otmar look awful. Like not nice at all.
I'm very excited to keep watching.
Yeah. And then the only other bit I wanted to highlight was the next episode, when they talk about Daniel Ricciardo, and Nice Guys Finish Last, which is freaking heartbreaking, by the way. Very tough episode to watch because you just genuinely see the pain in Daniel Ricciardo's eyes. But I, again, like, and I had said this, and a lot of people have said this, where Lando was getting a lot of PR work over the break. a lot of PR work. And in this episode, you kind of see why, where Lando says, at first he says, oh, it feels like a breakup. It's hard, he's a great guy. But then he says, they ask him, like, do you feel sorry? Like, they're trying to like find things to say for the media. And so
Yeah.
they're interviewing Lando, and he's like, no, I don't have sympathy. And he's like, yeah, he's a great guy, he's fun, but if you don't perform and get results, that's life. And just the attitude that he has about it. And then, he was also asked, like, oh, the media is gonna ask you, are you going to lead now? And he's like, I already was. And it's just like, oh. Yeah. So
That
there's
sucks
that.
because it seemed like Lando and Daniel had formed like a genuine friendship at this point.
Hmm.
You don't have to throw it all out at the end
I know.
just to prove a
Like,
point, you know?
we get it. Like your points say enough.
Yeah.
You don't have to pick at it. So
Yeah, we've talked about Daniel at nauseum. I'm not looking forward to watching this. I mean, I am
no.
looking forward to watching the episode, but
Yeah.
I still claim that you do not forget how to drive overnight, and I think something else was going on. So
It's a mental. I genuinely think it was the
yeah,
mental bit, because the radio at, I think it was the Dutch Grand Prix. It was after the break, when it was like just announced, that he was leaving. There was the open seat at Alpine, all that bit, and the radio when he gets P17, and then Gasly got P11, and it was like P11 was the best Gasly was going to get in the AlphaTauri car, and that kind of solidified him getting the Alpine seat, and you kind of see
yeah,
that happen behind the scenes. But with Daniel Ricciardo getting P17, like he goes in, he's like, I just need to prove to them that I can do it, and then he can't. And the way the radio handles it, they're like, oh, we're gonna talk after this. So like, well, they like you can just hear it in the guy's voice that he's not like, doesn't really feel bad for Daniel. And I just think, I was like, oh, that really I think that goes to show a little bit of how he was talked to, maybe more so at
yeah.
McLaren. But yeah, we can end it on that bit because it was tough.
I'm excited to keep watching. I'm excited to finish the season.
Hmm. Very excited for the new season. So much variety now, people in new seats, so many contracts ending. Curious to see, what happens. Even though we won't be watching the Bahrain Grand Prix, do you have any predictions on maybe who wins, any DNFs? What
Yeah,
are your
I was about
thoughts?
to ask you. I was about to say it's the first time we're back. Predictions.
I love it.
I think Max wins. I think Aston Martin gets top 5. One of them. I mean, Alonso, because
Yeah.
yeah. I think Alonso
Yeah.
gets top 5.
Okay.
I think Max wins. I think Checo and a Mercedes get the other podium spots. One of the Mercedes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
What about you?
I want to say something different. Like I want to say, oh, Hamilton wins or Perez wins, but I still feel like it'll be Max. Honestly, I could see it being Checo though too. Because sometimes, and I can't remember where this was or how many years this has happened, where whoever won the Bahrain Grand Prix is second in the finals,
Oh,
in the
interesting.
finale. Where, yeah, because I think Bottas won the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2021, maybe, or
Yeah.
2020, one of those. And yeah, and then was second. So, and that might have happened like twice or something. I don't know. It was something like that. So I don't know, maybe Perez or something wins the Bahrain Grand Prix.
I just generally going into the season,
Mhm.
I think the two drivers that I really, really want to like watch are
Mhm.
Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz.
I adore Carlos. I am very excited to see him this year. I think he's way underrated. Same with
Yes.
Sergio. I mean, Sergio, I don't think is like the top two drivers. I would say
No.
Charles, or maybe even top three. I would say he's like in the top 4 through 6. Like I think there's
Yeah.
a good mix of drivers in there, and he's there, and I like those drivers. I think it's always a good time to watch. Um,
Yeah, I think I don't I am curious if Checo is just going to come out aggressive this year after what
mhm.
happened last year. And I'm curious if Carlos is going to come out how he finished last year, because at the end of last year he was beating up
Trucking.
Charles a little bit.
Yeah.
And Checo has I mean, he's in the fastest car and has proven to be a nuisance at times
Hmm.
on the track. I am curious. I think this season kind of like will set what the rest of those guys' career look like. Like,
Yeah.
is Checo a number two that can actually like put up a little bit of a fight? Is
Yeah.
Carlos someone who can eventually be a lead man at a team? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I want to keep an eye on those two.
Yeah. I'm actually really curious because they both have, well, I know Checo still has 2 more years on his contract. I want to say so does Carlos. I think
Yeah.
has this until 2024 too. So much can happen between now and then.
Hmm.
And they're still going to have to start, proving that. And I think
Yeah.
that's going to make a huge difference in points because I think their cars are going to be so close to each other.
Yeah.
So, and Charles and Max are always going to be up there. It's more or less those second drivers. So,
Yeah.
I also think George will be on a podium. And I think knowing that Ferrari's already having reliability issues, both Alphas go. And maybe Charles or Carlos, I could see getting DNF too. Anyone with a Ferrari engine, I'm
That would
not
be
putting my eggs in.
that would be brutal.
Yeah. But
Here,
I do think for sure double DNF for Alpha. I'm just
okay,
gonna say that because
that's
they
tough.
had so many issues. Yeah.
Does Logan Sargent come in last place?
That's tough. It's either gonna be him or Hulkenberg.
Yeah, they're gonna
It's gonna
be
be him or Hulkenberg. It's
slapping each
gonna
other at the back of the
high
grid
fiving
the
at
whole
them back.
season. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one of those two. I'll say Sargent just because it is his first F1 race ever.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I would just want to get around the track.
yeah, make it to the
Yeah.
finish line.
Okay.
Uh, yeah,
Uh thank you for listening if you've made it this far.
yeah.
Follow us at BreakCheck F1 on all socials. Megan, do you have anything else to send us off with?
No, just follow our socials, chat with us, check out our link tree, check out our TikTok. Yeah, see you online. But otherwise, yeah, talk in a few weeks.